But as far as the deadline itself goes, in discussions with folks around the league, and not just in Portland, there's this kind of underlying feeling that the transactions that are going to take place are all secondary at the deadline right now. That, yes, you get the OG move and you had the Pascal move, which are not small moves by any means. But nobody is really looking to move off of draft capital outside of this year. This draft is not seen as a draft that has a bunch of top-end players, that it's a very flat draft in the sense of draft boards are going to be very different 1 through 20 about where teams have guys based on needs, based on projection, whatever. And it's going to be one of the more differing draft boards, I think, across the league in quite some time. And because of that, the volatility and value of picks, particularly in the first round, just isn't concrete. And with that, especially with a team like Portland, who already has 2 their own, where they're the 5th in lottery odds and 10th in lottery odds with the Golden State Warriors pick that they own, as well as 2 second-round picks, they have 9 players that have 1 year of experience or less on their roster. If they were to use every bit of draft capital, they're up to 13 players, which they're not going to do. Ugh. Honestly, the discussions that I've had with other executives around the league is that the bigger transactions are going to happen this summer around free agency and around the draft as the new CBA kicks in and the first apron and second apron. This is where it gets super weird, super nerdy, the implications of the new CBA and how prohibitive it can be against teams above those apron levels. For those that don't know, those apron levels, you've got your salary cap, your luxury tax cap, and then you've got your aprons that you can go beyond those. Those aprons were put in place for teams like the Warriors, who just said, we took advantage of 2016 and a spike in the salary cap and signed Kevin bleeping Durant, and our payroll ballooned.
We're okay paying $2 over for
$4.50.
$4.50 is what they're at now.
They are at the max threshold, which is $4.50 for every dollar they are over.
Good Lord!
Their luxury tax bill was more than almost every single. I think it was every single team's salary cap last year.
And this is what bothers me about teams that don't spend. It's worth every damn penny that they pay in that because of all the money they've made from their success.
The Trailblazers, yeah. And
they have made infinitely more.
The Warriors brand right now is the best brand in the NBA through their title run, because when you win, you print money, especially in that new building they're in, the Silicon Valley. The tickets for the suites and stuff like that place is going to make them $1 billion a year probably soon. It's insane. But the teams that aren't competing, whether that's the Blazers or
Warriors
now, when you're below the luxury tax threshold, the luxury tax, not the apron, you make money. The Blazers last year, I think it was reported, they made $34 million in luxury tax payments. That's nothing to sneeze at.
No.
It's $34 million for a team who's not competing to have in to put in their kitty kind of going forward.
It's also it's a weird thing though that the way the NBA operates, because every trade has to go dollar for dollar, and so when you are there, you don't get that money back if you get underneath that apron. It's the CBA in the NBA is bizarre in the way that it penalizes you, because if the Blazers wanted to open up that to go and grab that player, you have to be over already like existing in that luxury tax in order for that to
an extent sense. Yes, but here's the thing about the new CBA. The punitive issue, or the punitive punishments that come with it, are such that if you're a second apron team, which is like the most amount of money you can spend over the threshold, you can no longer take 120 to 150% back in a trade in salary value. You are limited to 110%, which now limits how effective you can be in those trades, where if you're trading a $20 million contract for a $10 million contract, nope, can't do that anymore. It's got to be $18 million. So you got to find that exact player. So it gets hard to do that. If you're over that apron and you're in the buyout market, you can no longer, like Kyle Lowry, let's say he gets bought out by the Charlotte Hornets, because his salary was $38 million. Because he's a buyout candidate, if you were the second apron team, you couldn't go get him in the buyout market because his contract was over the MLE. So there's these punitive measures to keep these super teams from being super. And I think there's a push here unnecessarily by the players to get more of a middle class again, because it's just been the super maxes, and then like the MLE and less. There's no more like 16, 17, 18, 20, 25. The Anthony Simons deals. There's just not that many of those around the league, where instead of being paid correctly, quote unquote, you're either overpaid, Zach LaVine, or you're underpaid, like a Naz Reid. And you're sitting there going, the values are skewed. And so they're trying to get more of those contracts back.
Find a middle class in the NBA.
Yes.
What all this leads to, though, is that it would be stunning if the Blazers made a move. And right now, it's actually a good position to be in, because if somebody is going to make a move and find that desperation over the next, 22 and a half hours, it will be a team that is willing to overpay for a Malcolm Brogdon or, whomever it's going to be. But all signs do point to this offseason is when you move on from whether it's Malcolm Brogdon, or if Jeremy Grant decides, all right, the year was okay, but moving forward, I want to go somewhere else.
I want to go compete or whatever.
Matisse Thybulle, those likes, those moves will be made in the offseason where bigger deals are made. And
particularly because not only are there more options and more time, but because you get to the draft, more draft picks because of the Stepien rule, it prohibits the use of additional draft picks beyond your calendar year, open up. Not only that, books open up. And come the summertime, when those punitive measures are more forthcoming, owners may look at their books and go, I'm not paying for that. We're not a competitive team after flaming out in the playoffs. So
the Blazers want veterans, not
they don't
draft capital.
They have been very clear in their discussions with other teams, and from my discussions with the team, is that they are fine with their draft capital.
You think they move on? Like, do you think they move on from one of their draft picks in the draft this year because of the fact,
I do,
mainly the Golden State pick,
I think
because of how young they are?
I think they might. I think part of the issue is like, let's say the Warriors pick, let's say it's top 10, and there's a team out there. It's like, man, we could use a nice rookie scale deal and a role player at this price, but also we could use a Malcolm Brogdon, and the Blazers could get a host of things back
because you want 2025 picks. That draft is loaded.
Or you get a 24-year-old young player that makes sense going forward in your, as a forward or as a front court player, and you've got that pick to work with. You've got Malcolm Brogdon to work with. You've got the rest of your draft. You just have more options, and there's more things available this summer. Look, if somebody comes over the top and says, here's a great offer, I hope the Blazers take it. I just don't think that team is that is happening right now, and the Blazers should not be in a hurry to take some crappy 2024 pick and Quentin Grimes.
Don't need it.
Quentin Grimes is an entirely fine player. He's a level above Cam Reddish.
But if there's a 6'3" guard, I mean,
but the thing is,
you got to take.
Well,
it.
Quentin Grimes is 6'4". If Quentin Grimes was 6'7", I'd be like, sure. But everybody's talked about not wanting this team to get any smaller, and yet I have people screaming at me, they should trade Malcolm Brogdon for Quentin Grimes. I'm like, he's 6'4". What are we doing? Why should they be in any hurry to go get a 6'4" 2'3"? I
love how worked up you get over Neil's burners.
Just make it make sense. That's all that I ask. Just be consistent in what you want. If you just want to trade for trade's sake because you're tired of what this team has already been and through 6 months of tanking, fine. But there's no reason to rush a transaction, and I don't believe the Blazers are in this position just because you want to see Scoot Henderson play 4 more minutes a night.
Not worth it.
It's not worth it. And now with Shaedon Sharpe's injury, you don't have to worry about that.